Hi Raul, welcome to Product D&I. How are you this morning?
All good, thanks, Cheryl. Thanks for having me. It's been
Great.
a while since we met each other.
Yes, absolutely. It's been 1 year, 3 months. And when I was with Workday, I was constantly inspired by yourselves. You carry a lot of immense mobile wisdom and also the interesting innovative ideas that you brought to the team when it comes to retrospectives, the emotional intelligence, neurodiversity, and all your mobile wisdom that you carried was phenomenal. And I learned a lot from you. So yes, so that's what all we are going to talk about today. So Raul, I would ask you to introduce yourself. Just a few words about where are you at in your career.
So, hi everyone. My name is Raul. I'm originally Spanish. I've been living in Ireland for 9 years, I think. That's a long time. I've been living abroad for 16 years, though. I've been doing mobile for a long time, before Android even, but I jumped onto Android as soon as it was released. I've worked on social network, educational apps for kids. I've run my own gaming studio. I've worked on augmented reality, healthcare, and now I'm at Workday, where we do like HR software. And all of this has been on mobile, particularly on Android most of this time. So I know a lot of legacy stuff that doesn't apply anymore. And I've seen the field grow from being something very small to being front and center for pretty much everything. So that's a little bit about me.
Wisdom. There's a lot of immense experience in the last many years into different domains.
Way too many.
Way too many, and that's why we all were so inspired from you. We were constantly learning from you. Tell us more about these new ideas and innovation that you brought to the team. Considering one example, Lego as an example.
Cool. Okay, let me start from the beginning.
Yeah. Okay.
So I was double checking the Agile manifesto this morning because I knew I was going to talk with you.
Yes.
Turns out it's from 2001. I thought it was a little bit later, but it's 20 something years and still a lot of companies don't understand it. One of the key, it has like 4 main principles, but one is, let me actually just read it exactly. It says individual and interactions over processes and tools.
Yeah.
Working software over comprehensive documentation. We can discuss a little bit about that.
Yes, absolutely.
Customer collaboration over contract negotiation and responding to change over following a plan. But the first part, individuals and interactions over processes and tools, is one that it really resonates with me, because when I started in computer science, I started because I was fascinated by computers. I love them. They are very easy. You tell them what to do and they do exactly what you tell them to. It's not like humans. Humans are very complicated. So I did computer science and I thought it was going to be about computers. And yes, computer science is about computers, but IT is about people.
Yeah.
And it's about these individuals and interactions that matter a lot. You have to work with other people. You don't work on a vacuum. And you have people that use your software. So you have to be aware of them. And you have to work, if the company is big enough, you have to work with people with other teams as well. So it ends up being a lot of people and interactions involved. So I think that is the key. As you progress higher in the engineering ranks, from junior to senior to principal, you spend more time talking to people and less time working with computers. So that's one of my key principles of Agile.
True.
And the other one is that there's no perfect Agile process. It depends on the team, it depends on the project, it depends on the moment in time. So even the same team for different projects may have different best approaches to work with that. The same project with different teams may also have different approaches. And what was important to me is to iterate over whatever you have until you find the best match for the current situation of the team. And as the team evolves, this may change and you have to continually revise it. So that's my Agile approach to Agile, which it was in the original definition of Agile, but I think it's been lost in the waves of too many certifications and too much things being official and less about being flowing like water, like finding the best match.
Sure, Raul. And I also wanted to add, as you've just mentioned, all the beauty about individuals and interactions, and I think that's what we did really great in our team. And due to that reason, we were so collaborative. We were a cultural team, and that was one of the beauty about our team. And I think due to these doing things right and collaborating more helped us be more innovative and more creative, and a fun team to be with, fun team to work with. Um,
Being diverse is super important. I think having people from all aspects, all kinds of diversity, like gender diversity, sexual orientation diversity. In our case, was a lot of multicultural diversity from different countries.
sure.
And as you mentioned at the beginning, as neurodiversity, by the way, full disclosure, I'm autistic. By the way, I'm very bad with social interactions, but I try my best. That's why I originally started with computers, and I ended up talking to people. I find it challenging, but at least there is information about it.
And
Anyway,
bring that. And would you like to add some more light into your neurodiversity project? I remember even in Workday, there were a couple of events were organized where you spoke about neurodiversity. And I do recall you also run some projects for kids in parallel.
I used to run a code club for kids, which stopped at the beginning of the pandemic, and we haven't actually found the time to restart it. But it was a code club for actually autistic kids. They're brilliant. They're really good. But what I was going back, that all type of diversity is important. And in my case, in being autistic, I just see these things in a very different way, which doesn't make sense to me. Is the way the things I see them, but other people in the team may find that the perspective is radically different. And that's the beauty of diversity, of all of it, that you bring different perspectives. What you were mentioning about fun, one of the multiple things to make things more fun and more interesting was to bring Lego, as you can see. And you can use Lego for what is called Lego Serious Play to solve problems using Lego. And you can do anything from simple things like retrospectives and setting up team values to exploring different approaches to solve a problem. It's a technique for creative problem solving. It's not very different from design thinking, but it just uses a 3D Lego model as its core. It's very interesting and it's fun. And that's another thing. I don't know if you remember when I ran my own company for a few years, when I was a contractor, the logo is a platypus, and it represents that it's fun. It's a fun animal. It's the mammal, but lays eggs, and it's venomous, but it lives underwater, and it has all sort of weirdness. Being fun is not the opposite of being professional.
Yeah,
being boring is the opposite of being fun. And the opposite of being professional is being unprofessional.
yes.
So if you can be fun and professional, you got a win-win, because when you are having fun, you actually unlock certain areas of your brain for creativity, and you do much better work. And being fun is not the opposite of being professional.
Raul, for me, when I joined Workday, I realized that I'm a person who likes fun at workplace, and that makes me more innovative, creative, and I can share my real self with my colleagues and to bond more closely with my colleagues. So that is my way of working, my way of working style that I really love. That is working with diversity, with cultures, and bringing fun at the workplace, which helps team embed so closely with each other, and the environment becomes so enjoyable, whether we are working in the office in the same premises together or over the Zoom. It's a very different and a happy, innovative dynamic that we create.
Happy teams are more productive. Like it's one of the core values of Workday is to have fun and to put the people first. And it's obvious. Like when people are having fun and they are enjoying themselves, they are more productive. If people are having a bad day and they are not happy where they are, it's much harder for them to just be productive. And there's another part about being your own self to work. That's another of the core values. In my head, all these values make sense for everybody, and they are so obvious that I don't understand why more companies do it. But if you bring a culture of acceptance of diversity, you don't need to mask who you are when you are at the workplace. You can be yourself. Now, For normal people, that's not much of an effort, but for autistic people, pretending to not be autistic at the workplace is a massive drain of energy. And all the energy you put into that is energy you're not putting into doing your work. So by being able to bring yourself as it is to the workplace, not having to do any masking for anything, it allows you to put all this energy into being actually productive and being more comfortable as well, because you don't have to hide anything of, as I said, sexual orientation or whatever. No one actually minds. You just be yourself, and that is part of the team being a place where you can trust each other and that you can be confident. That makes a lot of a difference into how productive you actually are.
Sure, Raul. And only recently I shared, I think it was a 2 to 3 minutes video on DE&I. I recorded my own experience working with Workday, that before Workday, the companies that I work with, my experience was completely different. But the moment I joined Workday, I was my happiest self. And I couldn't realize what is this? Why, Sharul, it's so different here. And when I reflected back on the DE&I factor, the cultural factor was the element there. And also the servant leadership that Workday focuses a lot on, all the trainings that our senior leadership goes through, cultures in DE&I. These aspects, I think, make such a big difference in the culture that Workday has cultivated internally.
You touched in a very interesting point that this culture of acceptance and trust makes people feel comfortable at the workplace and safe, and then you don't have to hide anything. You can bring all your energy to be more productive and happier. So it's a win-win. Everybody wins. But this culture of acceptance doesn't come on itself out of the blue. And you mentioned this people leaders training, like in Workday they call the managers people leaders. I think that's a good term. Right. But what's really important is that they got a lot of training into how to be better managers and how to bring more acceptance. And they specifically teach people how to do that, because this doesn't happen by itself. You have to proactively take the steps to make it happen. And I think that is one of the key successes of Workday, how they actually train their managers to foster this culture. It's not easy. It's most of the times invisible, but you can see it happen. You cannot see how it waves together, but you can see it happening in the workplace.
Also, another thing now when we're talking about managers, people leader, another beauty that I find is about the 360-degree feedback culture, or as a part of the team, we give feedback for our servant leaders, and that feedback rotates, and we all are working towards enhancing and improving our processes. So that's one of the aspects in Workday that I really enjoyed, receiving the feedback from your peers, from your colleagues, and the feedback that we provide to our servant leaders.
That's another thing that doesn't come for free. Like you can ask people for feedback, you can give people feedback, but it doesn't come naturally. You have to go first. You have to lead by example, by asking for feedback, getting the feedback, the good and the bad, and acknowledge the feedback and thank for it. Then when people see someone else in a leadership position doing it, they will feel more comfortable on doing it. And showing people that feedback is good, whatever it is, because feedback is always a gift.
Yes.
They will start to be able to accept themselves more freely, but you have to lead by example, and it has to come from leadership. Sure. How you are taking the feedback in, and how you are requesting the feedback, and how you are reacting to feedback. It's also something that there's training for it, and it doesn't come naturally, and it makes a lot of a difference in a culture of self-improvement, but also personally. Even if it's not something you do in your company, learning to ask for feedback and learning to take the feedback in, whatever it is a very valuable life lesson. You cannot tell something that something is bad, or if something is bad, you can tell why it's not working. That's already constructive. Even if you're telling that something is not working, if you're telling them why, it's giving opportunities to improve. Not just, I don't like this. This is shit. That's not good feedback.
So with Workday Mobile, my first journey into mobile started, and I literally started loving this space. And I'm a firm believer in the universe that everything happens for the best, and I still enjoy the mobile space. So would you like to talk about how your journey in mobile started? I know it's a
Well,
very long journey. It
I
started
was
a
no,
decade ago.
I was just this morning talking about how mobile developers are quite weird on their own way, because we are fascinated by these small devices with lots of constraints that are very personal, and they're quite unique. You don't get, when you are working on a backend, it's a completely different story. When you're working on a desktop browser, you have a lot of space, but mobile is this personal small device with lots of constraints, not so much screen space, and it requires a different skill set, but it also requires a different mindset. And in all these years since I started working on mobile, I've always find that yes, all software engineers are weird, but mobile engineers are very particular in the way they approach problems, and we're quite different from the other engineers. So what was for me, it was that I remember I had one of the first mobile phones, like the Nokia 3210, and I had a Palm. I had a Palm, one of these PDAs, which I still have. I can find it later if you want to see some of my old devices in museum. And I was thinking, why doesn't someone get this UI into this phone? That would be amazing. And at some point, I got the opportunity to work with Windows phones, like the very, very early Windows phones, which were like very bulky, and they had Wi-Fi when Wi-Fi was not a normal thing. And I started looking at them as like, people are trying to put mobile on a PDA. This is not working. Like, I have the Palm right here. This works. And then I moved abroad, and I started working on Symbian phones because it was the most advanced phones by then. I'm talking about things like the N95 from Nokia, when Nokia was the main manufacturer. And I remember it vividly. I saw the announcement for the iPhone. I went to the CTO of this small company. So like, Mari, I want to work on iPhone. So like, I'm sorry, all our clients are working on Symbian, so you have to keep working on Symbian. It's like, okay, well, I had to try. A few months later, Google announces Android, and it's like, it's very similar to iPhone, but it's open source. And I saw like, I like this even better. And I went back, Mari, remember what I said about iPhone? Just forget it. I want to work on Android. It's like the same answer as before. We're working on Symbian because it's all of our clients want. Then the recession of 2008 came. This company had to let go a lot of people, and my project just finished before the recession. It was very unlucky. But whenever a door closes, another door opens. So I found another job in the Netherlands in this Dutch social network working on Android, and it was like 2008, I thought social network on phones was going to be a big thing. I was a lot bigger than I thought it was going to be. But I got the chance to go there and start working on a social network app on Android, even before the first Android device was actually released. And I've been working on Android since. But that one was really, really cool. It was cutting edge technology back then. And believe me, you think the phones today are not responsive and laggy. If you go back to the original Android, the UI is clumsy, is super laggy all over the place. It doesn't do anything. It was a very, very restrained device, but it was completely new thing. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna search some devices in my drawer over here. Way too many things, Carol.
Yes, I'm sure you do.
Here it is. Let me see. So I talked to you about the first PDA I had. What was this thing? 160 pixels by 160 pixels. It doesn't have any internet connectivity. You have to connect it to in a cradle to actually sync and upload data to it. And it has a resistive screen that it only works with this pen.
Right.
It was It was fantastic. I love this device. It was the first mobile device I actually had. Can you
Wow.
believe I read books on this thing on my commute to work back in 2000 something? I have here. This is the first Android device.
Right.
Like
Wow.
it has like a lot of keys, and it also has a
Had a
slide-in
flat
keyboard.
here. Yeah.
So this one,
Very nice.
for
Right.
comparison of size, that's a Pixel 6.
Right.
So you
Nice.
can see like how far we've got since then.
In just a decade. Amazing. Raul, do you still at times use these two devices for any purposes? Maybe your research? They're like a
I
souvenir.
have them for like, how you call it, nostalgia reasons. I have them for nostalgia reasons.
Souvenir.
Um, this one I tried to update it to a newer Android version, and I bricked it, so this one doesn't even boot.
Okay.
But I keep it. It was the first Android phone ever, so it's kind of a piece of history.
Yeah. Definitely. Wow, thanks for sharing these devices with us. And I'm sure that there are always memories that we have associated with from where we started and now where we are, and the journey and the experiences we had on the way. Do you see that a lot has changed in the mobile world when it comes to UX or from the product point of view? What would you highlight as one or two things that you have seen, noticed that the trend has changed? Are you seeing the impact, influence of AI on mobile?
I would say from the point of, I don't write that much code anymore as a principal, but what I've seen finally taking off in the past 2 years is the switch from the old way we do UI on mobile to this new way that is called declarative UI, that is Swift UI for iOS and Compose for Android, which is much easier. You can write much more complex apps, better UI in a simpler way. It's easier to maintain. Yeah, I think maintainability doesn't sound like an issue until you work for 3 years in the same company and it comes back to hurt you.
Wow.
But yeah, it's a lot easier to maintain. It's a lot easier to read. It's easier to write. It's a better paradigm overall, and it's the biggest shift I've seen since the introduction of Kotlin and Swift.
Okay.
Was the previous biggest milestone on mobile.
Raul, congratulations on being a principal software developer at Workday. So now as you're a principal dev, so what has changed in this current role in comparison to the previous role? So you did mention to me that you don't code as much as you used to be.
That's fun. I actually read a book called Staff Engineer. This is how it is called in other companies. There's not so much literature about what it actually means to be a principal. And this book goes into several different buckets in which people can fill. And my understanding is that no one knows what a principal does. But if you become a principal, it's because you're doing something good. So we want you to do more of that. So that's one thing. The other thing is that as a principal, you care about longer vision. You don't care about the results of this sprint or even this quarter. You're looking at months at the very least. You're looking at not impacting your team but the entire organization. In my case, it's like about 100 people in mobile in Workday. So my attempts now all my efforts are to how can we make better software together? How can we all work together? And this is trying to influence practices, is trying to influence culture, and this doesn't happen in weeks, this happens in months. And as a result, I write a lot less code and I talk a lot more with people.
Right. So I wanted to share with you that when we started working from home, it was March the 8th. I was in Budapest enjoying my holiday in 2020. And when I came back, everybody just started working from home and I freaked out. I was going to the office, attending events and collaborating with. So I was spending a lot of my time in the office premises. So I literally freaked out that how I'm going to work from home and it's not gonna come easy to me. But the various tools and processes that we applied, you have brought a lot of exciting innovative ideas to run Scrum ceremonies, for example, the Lego side of things. Would you like to share more on our virtual collaboration and how teams can make working virtually more exciting?
Cool. That's a fascinating topic. So One thing to begin with, I'm a fan of working from home myself, but I'll come to that. That even full remote teams, and this is really important. Full remote teams take week-long resorts when they go together and they do team building activities in person, because building your connection with your team at a personal level is very important. Now, what happened when we get remote in Workday is that everybody in the team had built these connections over the first year working there. So when we went to working from home, we had these connections. Even if we couldn't have face-to-face interactions, we already had these connections. So building in-person relationships is very important for remote teams. You have to do it one way or another. So even if you're fully remote, you want to have team building activities in person, maybe quarterly, maybe less, but you need to have that. And when you move to work from home, personally, I find it a lot better. To begin with, I'm saving 50 minutes of commute each way. That's almost 2 hours a day. That's a lot of time that now I can spend with my family. So I like that. And I find that I have a lot less interruptions. So if you're an engineer, you really want to be down into coding and solving problems without anyone going around you, without the need of having headphones and saying people, I'm busy. And it's much, much easier to focus if you have a good environment at home.
Sure.
Or at least for me and for a lot of other people. So the two of things together made us work better. And the fact that we had all these previous in-person relationships made our team work really well in remote.
True.
Now, funny part.
Yeah.
As an autistic individual, I find Zoom meetings fascinating because I cannot read body language,
Okay.
not that much. So in Zoom, you don't really have that much body language. So I find it like a more level playing field where no one has access to this information. So now we are even. But because I've been doing this all my life, I'm actually kind of a slight advantage. And people have to do the extra effort to decode all the information that they will normally read from body language, from
Yes.
the tone or from the words.
Right.
And you heard this term Zoom fatigue.
Sure.
And I was joking that, yeah, you got Zoom fatigue because you don't have body language to decode this information. So at the end of the day, you're exhausted to do the extra processing.
Sure.
Now figure out, that's how normal in-person meetings feel for me, because I cannot parse body language and I have to make an extra effort to try to figure out what the people is trying to do with a full day of meetings is extremely exhausting.
Same here, Raul. I have the similar experience when I am working with my colleague on the Zoom. I need to have their Zoom on because it helps me understand what their expressions are, and mainly the body language. I think for me as well, it plays such a big role. Otherwise, by the end of the day, I find myself so fatigued because my brain is constantly trying subconsciously to understand or decipher. If one of my colleagues doesn't have a camera turned on, I struggle to understand the expressions or maybe to connect from the emotional point of view. Yeah, I have these struggles. I do.
Funny stories about eye contact. Autistic people are mostly very bad at eye contact, which on Zoom call doesn't really exist.
Okay.
So for me, I'm looking at the screen, I'm looking at you, but I don't have to be doing eye contact with you because we are not in the same place. For me, it's much easier. It removes a lot of extra effort to have to focus, where am I looking? And that actually makes this communication, asynchronous virtual communication, makes it a lot easier for me. It's the same when you are in Slack. You don't have any context. You don't have body language. You don't have tone. You don't know if someone is being sarcastic or is just trying to be friendly. You don't have that information. You have to decode that exclusively from the message and emojis,
Right.
Mostly from the message. And that's an effort that for me is normal, but other people are not used to that. I mean, for me and for a lot of autistic people. So we find working from home to be kind of a leveling field, and some other people have like this social anxiety of how should I behave in an office? Do I have to tell hello to everybody? Do I have to engage when I go to the coffee maker? Do I have to engage in conversation? When someone asks me, how are you? How much is too much? All the small things, they are a waste of energy. that is mental energy that we have to do every day. I mean, I know you neurotypical people don't, but we do. All that is gone. So I have a lot more energy to devote to my work. Well, we are like 50%-ish time in the office.
Okay.
And it's like, it depends a lot on your manager, but the idea is the same as no one is checking when are you entering and how many hours are you working every day, as long as you get your work done. No one is checking that you're doing exactly 8 hours a day or 50 hours a week or whatever. So no one is checking how many days you're going to the office. As long as you are around here, sometimes when there's a lot of in-person interactions like quarterly planning and things like that, yeah, it's better if we are all in the same room. So right now we have one very meeting heavy day where we do all these full in-person interactions, like all these meetings.
Right.
And I also allocate a lot of one-on-ones on those days. Those days I don't even write code. I don't even try. We found that this mix, when you are at home, you are doing full focus work. When you are at the office, you're making advantage of in-person interactions as much as you can. It's working quite well, and it gives, to me, 2 days a week is the best, because it gives me the flexibility to talk to people, but at the same time get some work done, and it saves me a lot of time in commuting, but you still have this in-person connection. So this model is working really well for me, but what is critical moving forward in the industry is to not be fully remote or fully in office, is to be fully flexible, is to ask the person, what's your preference?
Right.
Do you want to come every day to the office? Do you want to work from most of the days? Do. As long as you work fine with your team and you are all okay with this,
yeah,
everybody gets to work the same way. Because like, I have an attic, I have a very nice office, I have a very good layout. I separate my workplace from the rest of my home, so I can actually disconnect. This is very important. But if you are just graduate, you're staying in a flat with other people, and you have to work from your bedroom or from the kitchen, then remote work is not really serving you that well. Definitely. You're probably better off going to the office every day, especially if you live within walking distance. Sure. So for these people, going every day to the office may be the best option. Maybe in a few months later, they find an apartment on their own and they prefer to work from home more often. But it really is about giving people flexibility to find the way they work best. And I think Workday is doing a pretty good job at that. And they're being very clear on their expectations and what is good and what is bad and what they want from people. So
yeah, absolutely, Raul. When COVID started, I wasn't a work from home person, but gradually, after seeing that all the different models we were putting in place for making it comfortable for the team members to work comfortably from home, some leaders were asking us what works the best for you, what makes you more productive, and I think now we understand what works the best for us, what makes us highly innovative or productive. So yes, on the basis of that, we should have our choices to make. And
keep in mind that what happened in 2020 was not working from home. Was you cannot go anywhere because it is a pandemic.
True.
It was not. It was a lot of stress added to. It's not that I'm working from home because I want to. It's because I cannot even go to the office. The stress levels, the lack of preparation, the lack of options for everybody.
Yeah.
It was much worse than a conscious decision to say, let's open work from home. And now that we are in a state where we can have this option, I think people that are opting for working from home are much happier because it's a lot less stressful overall. 2020 was a crazy year.
And Raul, you have nailed it when you mentioned that we never started from the idea of working from home. It was a preventive measure that we couldn't just go anywhere. And that resulted into work from home circumstance or model. Yes, definitely. How can we forget it? That it never started that way.
It was not intentional to try to work from home. It was like there was no other way.
Yes.
The situation was very stressful. In my case, even the school closed, and I have my kids at home, and I had to take the parental leave to help with homeschooling. It was a very stressful time, and despite all of that, we did quite well. One of our coming back together in person we did zip lining.
And at Workday, I really enjoyed the team events that we used to run. They used to be on the quarterly basis, so that was one of the best part that keeps the team bonded together. And I think that's how we are connected even. And yeah, I think these the collaboration techniques and the team bonding, the emotional EQ side of things, and team events, they keep us connected, and the connect relationships that we will build with each other at that point in time, they last forever. And that's what brought us together in this conversation, Raul. And I'm sure a lot of people who are going to watch these sessions are going to learn a lot from you.
Well, thanks for having me, Cheryl, and thanks for listening for this old man ramblings around. I do try my best. I mean, after all, like mentoring is one of the key areas as a principal engineer. So I try my best, but I still feel like most of the time I'm a grumpy old man rambling about all things that don't matter anymore, but it's fine. I have fun with it, and as long as people are enjoying it, it's okay.
With the energy, the enthusiasm, and the drive that you carried within the team, that encouraged everyone around us. So I still have great memories from Workday, and I cherish those, and I share them whenever I get a chance. Definitely.
That means we were successful team then.
Yes, we were indeed. And I had realizations that cultural teams, more diverse teams, more closely connected teams that are working like family together and learning and growing and developing with each other is my working style. That's what I love the most. Where I can share my real self.
Absolutely. Thanks very much, Raul. It was lots of fun.